Well, hello again, and welcome to this episode of This Much Is True Crime with me, Martin Frizell, and the award-winning emeritus professor of criminology,
Oh,
David Wilson. What have they given you an award for now?
yes. Well, can I just say I was not expecting this award, and I don't know why I have got it, but I was given this award by CrimeCon, um, the true crime convention that meets twice a year, and they gave me, and I'm embarrassed to say, a lifetime achievement award. And being a Scot, I felt my lifetime achievement was having my own teeth. But there we are. It's very kind of them. It's very lovely of them. And yeah, it's really nice. So
Does it
thank you,
come with like a
CrimeCon.
big check of some kind, or maybe a holiday somewhere?
That would have been nice, but no, it came with that award. But to be absolutely genuine, Amelia Fox presented it to me, and I thought that. And as you know, we Amelia and I present a TV series on Channel 4 together, and so it was really sweet that she came and gave me the award. So yeah, it was really moving. But when something says a lifetime achievement, I'm like, you
How
know.
long? How long have you got? Because you won't be here next year.
Yeah,
Oh God.
yes, you're kind of like, oh well,
Yeah.
oh thanks
Well,
very much.
congratulations anyway. It's great that you've been recognised. So it's the award-winning David Wilson there.
Thank
Now,
you.
I was going to be busy today as well because I went to Sainsbury's. I was looking for a beef Wellington that I could just heat up because I couldn't be bothered to actually make one of these things. The reason why, of course, we are talking about probably Australia's most famous trial ever, which is the case of the beef Wellington and what was inside it and the mushrooms that were inside it. And it's the strange case of Erin Patterson, David, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, Erin Patterson. So we're back in the 29th of July, 2023. She lives in a small town in Victoria called Leongatha. It has about 5,000 people. She has invited over, so the 29th of July 2023 is a Saturday. She is invited over for lunch to give them this beef Wellington, her former in-laws, Don and Gail Patterson, and she also invites over Ian and Heather
That's it,
Wilkinson.
Wilkinson,
Is
yeah.
that right, Wilkinson? And Heather Wilkinson is Gail Patterson's sister. And she had also invited, Erin Patterson had also invited over her estranged husband, Simon Patterson. And she and Simon had been married. They separated in 2015. They had two children. The two children weren't at the lunch, they had gone out to the cinema. And Simon Patterson at the 11th hour says that he cannot attend the lunch party. And here's the thing, Erin says how disappointed she is by that because she was inviting everybody over so that she could get their advice because she claimed she had ovarian cancer and wanted to ask them how she should explain that to
And
the
the
two
meal that
children.
she cooked for them was beef Wellington. And she surrounded the beef, as we know, you surround the beef with pate, and then it's in a pastry. But she put mushrooms around it. And the upshot is basically three of her lunch guests died. The other one was gravely ill and may well have needed a liver transplant. It's not been confirmed yet. She survived because the mushrooms contained the death cap mushroom, which is just about the most toxic, poisonous food ingredient you could ever come across. Just 1 ounce of it can kill a human being, and you can't negate its properties by cooking or by washing or anything. This thing is indestructible, and it's out to get you if you are unfortunate enough to come across it. Now, so we're into a trial. This is 6 weeks so far into this trial. She gave evidence last week. She's got another week or so of evidence to go, maybe a couple more weeks of this trial. But it has captured the attention of the world. A very strange thing, which of course she maintains is an accident, but a strange lunchtime event has got the whole world watching and talking.
You're absolutely right. And, there's a wee bit more to this as well, is there not? Because, of course, you mentioned the slow death. You know, to die from the poisoning that you would get as a result of eating death cap mushrooms, it's not quick. And it took some 5 days before Gail, Dawn, and Heather died. And basically, what the poison does is it attacks the organs, in particular the liver. 5 days of an agonizing death is really quite torturous, traumatic. And I remember speaking, for example, and perhaps we can come on to this later, to Nick Bailey, who was the detective sergeant in Salisbury, who's going to be poisoned by Novichok. And I know the agony that that man went through and continues to go through. But here's the other thing that captures the imagination. Because Ian Wilkinson survives, he can tell us about the lunch. He can take us directly into what the lunch was like, how the meal was prepared, how the meal was served, the plates on which the beef Wellington rested, how big of the portions were. He can take us right into the actual meal. And that's part of, I think, why this has captured the public's imagination. Because in one sense, there are a few reports that kind of make it like a cozy crime. This is, just like an Agatha Christie. It's in a small village. It's not really. It has echoes of that kind of cozy crime genre, whereas in fact, it captures the imagination because this is so appalling in terms of what happens to these people and the agonies they
And what,
suffer
what you're
before
laying
they
out there is
die.
the prosecution's case, which astonished me, because right at the start of this trial, almost a month and a half ago, the leading prosecutor, said to the jury, "Now this is not about motive. This is not about why she did it. This is about the intent. Was it deliberate? Did she deliberately set out to kill those people with that food?" And I was astonished at that, because for me the whole thing is motive, because surely the whole point of the defense is going to be that there was no motive for her. She purely was a dreadful cook, made a mistake, and shouldn't have done it.
Well, you're right. That's her defense. Her defense is this is a tragic mistake. I did not intend. I had no mens rea. I had no guilty mind. I accept that these people died as a consequence of the food that I prepared containing death cap mushrooms, but that was an error. I didn't deliberately put those death cap mushrooms there. In terms of the motive, though, there is quite clearly motives
Really
because, of
bad,
course,
yes,
we learn
but
quite
I
a
mean, you
bit.
wanted to explain. But to kill someone, really? But carry on. But I mean, this is what I'm thinking. I know what you're about to say, but to kill someone, to kill a whole, to kill a whole dinner table of people. Carry on, carry on. You explain what you think the motive is then.
Well, the motive, I think, is the fact that increasingly her ex-husband Simon Patterson, from whom she separates in 2015, changes his tax status, and that by doing so, by saying he had separated from her, means that there's an anxiety on her part about childcare arrangements, about the money to keep the children in private education. And so there is in the background here a sense in which she wants the money, she wants cash, she feels somehow her life has been affected by Simon Patterson separating and not appropriately dealing with the financial arrangements. And the other bit to add in to this extraordinary mix of factors is that Erin Patterson had inherited 2 million Australian dollars from her mother after her mother died. And some of that money she loans to Simon Patterson, who in turn loans that to members of his extended family. So there's quite a lot of financial issues in the background here, and I think those financial issues
Yes,
provide a
but if she's
motive.
so generous to her And she's very conscious as well to say he's not an ex-husband, because I don't know whether she wants to rekindle the relationship. She's just saying we're separated. But clearly, why would she give money, quite a bit of money? So it's 3 or 4 of his relatives that he then gives it out to. Why would she do that if she didn't like the family to the point where she wants to poison them to death coming round for lunch, including, of course, Simon, who was invited, but lucky
but
for him,
says no.
didn't turn up.
Well, I mean, I think there's a sense in which you were getting at it in one of your earlier replies. You were getting at this idea: how the hell did she think she would get away with this? In one sense, because if all these people die as a result of coming to eat food and you survive, well, it's pretty clear something must have gone on. I don't think she thought that through. My own sense is there are so many lies connected to her defense and what she says in terms of this being a tragic accident that I simply don't accept that she had carefully thought this through to its conclusion. And I think I mean, for example, can I tell you some of the lies I've explained? She says, I'm inviting you over because I want your advice about how to explain to the children I have an ovarian cancer. She doesn't. She's admitted that's a lie. She then says she's never had any visit to any place where there has been death cap mushrooms, and yet because she has 3 mobile phones, it was possible at one stage to show that she had been on a website where they were identified, where these death cap mushrooms had been identified. She then lies saying, oh no, I may have bought these mushrooms from an Asian Chinese food store in Melbourne. No food store in Melbourne has ever been, Chinese food store in Melbourne has ever been identified that she'd gone to. There's the food dehydrator. She said she didn't have one. Then she's filmed putting a dehydrator in the trash. And equally, remember, she has factory reset the 3 mobile phones. She had 3 mobile phones, and she factory resets them in the belief that that will hide the fact that she's been on these websites showing where the death
And we
cap
think that,
mushrooms
at
are.
least on one of the phones, it was shown in court a picture of, looks like her weighing scales, where she had a mushroom fungi expert saw the picture and said, that's a death cap mushroom on those scales. The suggestion is she was weighing the mushrooms to see just how much was she going to put in or needed to put in it to kill her lunch guests. The thing for me is, it's just such a heinous crime that when you add up all
Yeah.
the evidence, and also you think that her husband says she's an intelligent woman, she was the editor of a local newspaper, God help us, she was an air traffic controller as well. I mean, you just do wonder about the intelligence of, how seriously smart is she if she can do those things, but she gets this so wrong. Because I want to believe that she's innocent, because I just can't think that, she would really callously think I can get away with it, because it's just so cack-handed, really, all the trail of evidence, and the fact that she's pretty much lied just about everything as well, and then admitting it in court through either herself or her lawyer. Dave, can I just say though, so in terms of the death cap mushroom, this deadly toxic mushroom, Australia,
Yeah.
this is not unusual in Australia. There have been at least as many as 10 cases in the past, fairly recent times, over a decade or so, of people who have died from death cap mushroom poisoning, including quite a few Asian people, quite a few Chinese people in Australia. One in particular was a chef, actually. I've got it down here from New Year's Eve 2011. Li Jun, he's 38. He was a chef at the Chinese bistro in a German club in Canberra. He made a staff meal, and he and his kitchen porter, she was in her 50s, they both died because he mistakenly put death cap mushrooms in their meal, thinking it was what they called a paddy straw mushroom, which looks very similar and is actually one of the mushrooms that's used a lot in Asian cooking around the world. So it's an easy mistake to make arguably, which I presume, and I don't know why, or maybe the defense will bring this out at some point and say, look, she was saying she'd taken down a Tupperware box that she stored her dried mushrooms in, and somehow a death cap mushroom must have got in there. Now, I'm wondering, is she going to suggest that it was from the store that they included death cap mushrooms, or did she actually forage them herself and they got mixed up?
Hey, I like the idea of you introducing foraging because, of course, this is part of the reason why many other people have had problems with toxic mushrooms because, of course, foraging is very popular. And we now have lots of chefs that talk about foraging in the wild and so forth. And these death cap mushrooms don't just exist in Australia. They're in the south of England, especially under oak trees and beech trees. The other thing that got me, quite apart from the analysis that you've just given, I've pointed out, she inherited 2 million Australian dollars, and she has said, in terms of the meal itself, because Ian Wilkinson can take us directly to that meal, that she gave her guests, she said she only had 4 plates, and she gave her guests the 4 plates, which were of a particular color. And she said she only had one other plate, which her daughter had made for her in primary school, and she used that plate. Now, I was in your house not so long ago, and I deliberately counted the number of plates you had. The idea that she only had 4 plates, which of course I would suggest, would I not, is a way that she keeps control over who's getting the death cap mushrooms and who's not getting those death cap mushrooms, which is her. So there's a lot to be explained about all of this. It's usually me that's saying, she's guilty, but I get the impression that you still think she's
It's
innocent, don't
just
you?
such a, I don't know, it's just such a simple kind of um, whole kind of event that I can't get my head around that someone actually thought they could get away with it. I mean, even if her estranged husband had turned up, that would have been 5 of them she would have killed. I just don't know how she explains it unless she gets ill herself. And I know she went to hospital with the 4 lunch guests, but then she checked out. She was out quite soon, and what may happen if she is found guilty, and this may well not be in her favour, is the fact that while she was in hospital, she could have alerted and she was told that yeah, we think they've got mushroom poisoning. She could have alerted the authorities, the hospital doctors, to say, yeah, it was death cap mushrooms, because although this thing is deadly, there's a possibility, and clearly one of them survived, there's a possibility you might be able to do something because time is of the essence. If she told them right at the start this was it, then perhaps it may not be as bad as it turned out to be. And I wonder if she is found guilty, if the judge will take that into consideration when the judge is handing down a sentence.
Interesting point. I think she's as guilty as sin. I'm key. I've been obsessed with this story, as you know, since it first emerged into, not just Australian consciousness, but kind of world consciousness. And that for me is also part of this story, isn't it? There are 72 species of animals that will kill you in Australia. And if somebody's eaten by a crocodile or bitten by a shark or poisoned by one of the many venomous snakes or spiders, that story doesn't get covered by the world's press. But this story does. And I think there's something bigger about this story in terms of our subconscious as a species. We really are fascinated and alarmed by people who are prepared to use poisons. And of course, she fits, therefore, if she is proven guilty, she fits with that sense of, the a female killer will use poison. Some of our most famous serial killers, Mary Ann Cotton, used arsenic, and so forth and so forth. There's a real, I'm really fascinated by poisons and why poisons seem to have this kind of universal appeal for members of the public because they're so desperate to avoid ingesting something
But even
that
as
will do them
children,
harm.
from Disney, from Snow White, it's
Oh yeah.
even just at early years you're told these things, and of course the death cap mushroom goes back a long, long way, even to the Emperor Claudius. Allegedly, he was the victim of a death cap, whether it was poisoning or whether it was by mistake or not. So it's been around a long, long time. I'm just astonished that anybody actually. There's two things with this. You mentioned the plates, and you've been in my house. You saw my plates. And that's because I just changed my plates, because for many years we've been here and with two kids and whatnot, plates do get smashed. And I don't think until a few months ago I had, six plates for dinner that all looked the same. I probably only did have four. So this is another thing where I'm prepared to give her the benefit of the doubt on that.
You You're so sweet. That's so nice. That's the first time I felt you were going to give the. I mean, it's usually you're usually. I'm having to rein you in. You think you're going to give her the benefit of the doubt. All that has to be demonstrated is that she had a guilty mind. Everything else she's accepting. Her argument is, I accept that these people died as a consequence of the meal that I cooked for them. I then panic and hide all these other things because everybody thinks I've poisoned them. That's her argument. This woman had a guilty mind and constructed very carefully a narrative that was going to allow her as much as possible to get
But
away
as
with
you
what she's
know, it's
done.
down to a jury, and they're susceptible, and they're open to argument, and they're open to influence in some cases. And clearly, despite the prosecutor saying this is not about motive, of course, every normal, human, rational thinking person is asking, why did she do it? Why did you do it? Yeah, you're not going to get away with it. Bonkers, you thought you would, but why did you do it in the first place? And I can't help but think that some of those jurors will be swayed, despite what the prosecutor says. It'll be interesting to hear what the judge says in summing up about motive. But if they ignore or they take in some of what the defence says, I think, remember, it has to be beyond reasonable doubt that you're sure,
Yeah.
100% sure, that she set out that day with the intent to kill those people. Doesn't matter why, but you believe that's what she was going to do, not just a rubbish cook.
You're okay. I mean, you're strongly outlining what I think her defense has been, and let's also give her credit. She went into the witness box and has provided testimony. But our most famous poisoner. Oh, the young poisoner's casebook. What was he called? What's his name again?
The Young Poisoner's
Can you
Casebook.
remember? Yeah,
I
there
don't
was a
have that
film
here
made
somehow.
about
Sorry, I
him.
haven't got the Young Poisoner's Casebook. Maybe that's why I haven't. Right, is it? There we
Graham
go.
Young.
What did
He was
what did
called
he do?
Graham Young, and he used to put antimony in cups of tea, and so of course, if you drank the tea, you clearly could tell. Well, he made the tea. He didn't think that through either. There was no sense in which he was thinking through, oh, well, I know if I'm putting stuff in the tea, they're going to die, and that will identify me as the poisoner. Because the thrill for some of these people doesn't come so much just from the fact that they're taking someone's life. The thrill comes from watching their agony. The thrill comes from recognizing that you've done something to them and that hurts them. And it's the hurting of them that gives you psychologically the pleasure in engaging in the illegal act. Young was, by the way, influenced by his fascination for the Prince of Poisoners in British history, Dr. William Palmer, who again was executed for poisoning. There's a tendency always to just think of this as a crime that women commit, but men
But see,
commit
there
this crime too.
you're suggesting that the poisoner does this because they get some sadistic pleasure out of seeing their victims in agony. She
Yeah.
doesn't come across. Erin Patterson doesn't come across as someone like that.
Oh, I would love it if there was some kind of checklist that I could just use when I encounter people to see if they're going to be interested in sadistically torturing people in the right circumstances. But there isn't. Ordinary people do dreadful things. And for me, she was angry at the Pattersons. She was angry at her in laws for supporting their son, who she was estranged from. And the other thing we haven't mentioned, remember, originally there were attempted murder charges that were dropped just before coming to court. And those attempted murder charges were of Simon Patterson. And those charges got dropped, I think, partly because the prosecution felt, well, look, we're going to get her on these charges, so let's not worry about the attempted murder charges, which would be more difficult to prove. The toxicology, everything is here. In terms, do you know the other thing? The other thing I got really excited about by this case was just the sense in which she was so clever. She was clever because when she discovered that one of the phones that the police had taken from her and was locked in the detective's drawer in the police station, she went on a site called Find My Phone, realized that the phone the police had just taken from her was still connected to the internet, and did a factory reset on it whilst it was in the police station and in the detective sergeant's drawer. This was a clever woman who was desperately trying to hide all the evidence that pointed to the fact that she did this. She attempted to do this very carefully, and now has developed this huge froth of a story to hide
Where
her
she went
guilt.
wrong, and bear in mind she's denying this, and the defence, and she says it was all accidental. Where she may have gone wrong, if she's found guilty, is that she should have made herself more sick, shouldn't she?
Now, that clearly would have been a better defence. And when she goes to hospital, she discharges herself. She says she's discharging herself because she's worried about the two children. She needs to get home. She's worried about social services becoming involved with them, all that kind of stuff. But you're right, she isn't that sick. And in fact, she takes her son to a flying lesson, within a day of having eaten the meal. She then has to try and explain, she argues that she was sick, but there was nothing in her stomach that could actually demonstrate what she had ingested. And then she claims again, the reason why there was nothing in my stomach is I threw up because I binged on cake that was left from the lunch, and I ate so much of the cake I threw up. I mean, this is lie after lie after lie.
Perhaps she was thinking this was going to be the perfect crime of all perfect crimes, because it would come across as a pure accident, and hey, I get rid of 5 of them for whatever reason. But with Novichok being probably the most recent case, state poisoning, and so quite advanced, is there some, with modern technology, with modern science, is there any way that you could poison someone and the authorities would never know that it was you, that it was poison, or trace it back to you?
Yeah, there are. And I have to be very careful about how to answer that question because I have to self-censor that. But yes, there are. You're also right in drawing attention to, the 19th century was known as the arsenic century because so many people were poisoned by others who deliberately gave them arsenic, which can be dissolved in soups and teas, so a hot liquid. And it was only when forensic science developed enough to get a test to demonstrate, Wrench's test, for example, to demonstrate that arsenic had been ingested, that the use of arsenic to poison disappears. Now we've got Novichok. So, and indeed the Salisbury poisonings and what happened to poor old Nick Bailey and others in that case. Now we've got state-sanctioned poisonings, and Yeah, I'm afraid there are ways of getting rid of people that you don't want, that will is not
Well, then we have
detectable.
to, sadly, that's not for broadcast, and you could probably tell me about that over a pint. Not that I want to lose anyone. I'm very happy with everyone I've got around me just now. I'm not planning to doing anything, but I do find it fascinating. I just wondered whether or not, science would have been able to trace it. These days, you can never get away with it, but you're saying that there's possibly still ways that you can do that. So that's interesting. Just we better wrap this up now. But so from you, Erin Patterson, guilty as charged or not?
Oh, 100% guilt. Her defense has done a very clever thing, and the kind of putting her in the stand, everything is a mistake, but equally, the case is being heard within the local community. So I think she's hoping that a local community that would trust one of their local community isn't going to find against her. But yeah, I think she's as
Well,
guilty
see,
as
I'm going to come
charged.
out with a hung jury. I think they will not be unanimous beyond reasonable doubt. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's a retrial. And if it is a retrial, I wouldn't be surprised if the prosecution, those other charges that they dropped, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring these back in as well and throw the whole book at her.
But the thing that I'm really most impressed by in terms of this discussion that we've been having is knowing now that you have more than four plates.
Actually, there's a story about that. I won't say where I got them from, but they were late in coming, didn't turn up in time, and so I complained and complained and complained, and they sent me two sets, two dinner sets, three cutlery sets, and I didn't send them back. I have given
And
them to other people, deserving folks. So these dinner plates and cutlery sets are around. But I know I just thought, if your service there, the customer service was so dreadful, you deserve, quite frankly, to allow me to enjoy as many places as I want.
and Martin, one of the things that we've both been very keen on now that the podcast has been established is getting people to communicate with us, to write in, to ask questions, to pursue some of these issues that we've been talking about, and what would they like to hear from us
Yes,
talking
please. You
about
can
in the
contact us
future.
through all the usual social channels. We're on all the platforms, and just drop us a line, and we'll collate them all, and we'll do a special, which is exactly kind of what you want to know. The top 5 things or the top 10 questions that you want. I can probably tell you right now what they would be. We've done some of them in previous episodes, but no, more than happy to talk about that. I think as well, whether it's P Diddy, which we know is coming to an end soon, or Erin Patterson, which will come to an end probably in the next fortnight. We're just halfway through it, really, kind of thing. There will be a lot more, I think, questions that need answering when this comes out, and as I said, if it comes out and it's not a guilty verdict, wow, that is another fantastic story, isn't it?
Well, and let's see. I mean, I just don't believe that the Australians will not convict Erin Patterson. I've got a real faith that an Australian jury will see through
Well,
her
we're
defence.
watched around the world. This is global by to internet, and so we have to point out again, David, that she is innocent until proven guilty, uh, and so let's
That's
just
absolutely
see,
true.
what those jurors come out with. I think there might be a shock. For the time being, though, thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, David.
Bye bye. Bye.